Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make an edible fruit bouquet from start to finish. Here I'm just showing you what we need, including tools, utensils, equipment, and fruit. Place your milk and white chocolate chips in separate bowls for melting. Heat them for 60 seconds and then 30-second increments until melted. Stir the chips until they're smooth. In the milk chocolate, I added a little bit of oil so that it's not so thick. The white chocolate doesn't need it. Here's the milk chocolate and the white chocolate that we needed for this bouquet. I've also got chocolate sprinkles as well. Now to prep your strawberries, you're going to wash them and dry them, and then you're going to put bamboo skewers into them. I normally use 10-inch skewer sticks for any edible bouquets. They're usually long enough for tall arrangements, and then you can just simply cut them when you need the skewer stick to be smaller. What I'm doing here now is simply dipping my strawberries into the milk chocolate, and I'm doing about 2 or 3 at a time. I'm going to dip them first just because it takes a little while for the chocolate to harden, and if I sprinkle the sprinkles right away, it ends up kind of dripping down with the chocolate because it's heavy. Of course, I do the first one dipped to be sprinkled and consecutive ones thereafter. I'll then do another group of 2 dippings, and then I'll take the first one, sprinkle it, the second one, sprinkle that. And by that time, it's ready to be sprinkled and it hardens faster and there's not as much drippage. I did on my very first one get a bit of drippage and realized I should have been doing that to begin with. All right, now I'm doing white chocolate. I dipped all my berries in white chocolate first. It's really simple. You have to let it dry first or else they kind of can blend together, and if you don't want the blending, then you got to let the white chocolate dry first. And that's all it is. You just simply take your strawberry, dip it into the white chocolate, and let it do a bunch of those and let them dry. In this arrangement, I think I'm doing about 8 or 9. It's up to you how many you want to do. It all sort of depends on how many people you're serving, so base it on that. Imagine, let's say each person would want to have 2 strawberries, then possibly prepare that many for each person at least. And if you do like the blended look, you just have to dip your strawberries into the white chocolate first, and then right after do your swirl with the milk chocolate. It just appears smoother, which is a pretty nice look as well. All right, now it's time to do our cantaloupe, and you're going to need this little tool here. It's just kind of like a melon seed remover. So that's really, really convenient when you're doing a lot of cantaloupe and honeydew. Now make sure you wash your melons because you are touching the outside, and then you are going to be touching the melon flesh as well. To cut your melons, you're going to take a sharp knife. A long one as well is important. And you're just going to cut it in half and then turn it, cut that in half, and then turn it and cut that in half until you have basically 8 wedges. Now you're going to take a paring knife and you're going to cut the inside, just a little bit of it, and then you're going to take off the skin. The reason we take off the inside is a little bit slimy, so we want to remove that. And then, of course, you want to take off the skin. And once you've done that and you've got your wedges, you're going to grab your 10-inch bamboo skewers and you're going to put the melons on those. I have a container prepared for me to put the finished skewered melons into. That way they can just, sit there as I prepare the other honeydew here. And I'm going to cut the honeydew just the same way as I cut the cantaloupe. Take off the seeds, cut the wedges. You should get 8 per half. You can end up getting more with honeydew sometimes just because it tends to be a bigger melon. And if you just cut it the way I'm cutting it right now, it actually tends to be a lot bigger than the cantaloupe. So sometimes I do take those quarters and I cut them into 3 instead of cutting them in half. But in this case, I've just cut it in half, so I have 8 pieces or 8 wedges as well for the honeydew. And again, I'm doing the same thing, putting them on bamboo skewers. Now it's time to do our grapes, and I've washed these and dried them a little bit with paper towel, but I'm going to pick 4 grapes and make sure they're firm, and you're going to put them on bamboo skewers. I do about 4 on the skewers, depending on how large the grapes are. Sometimes if they're really big, I only do 3. If they're really small, I might do 5, but 4 is usually good. And again, depending on how many people there are, I'm going to do about 5 or 4 skewers for this arrangement. Now this is the pot I'll be using. It's about a 4 by 4 inch pot, and I've washed it. You don't have to dry it, but it's nice to dry it because then your whole table will be wet. I've also got lettuce here. This is just iceberg lettuce, which we're going to fill this container with. And here's the kale. This is what we're going to kind of cover the iceberg lettuce with. The iceberg lettuce is actually what we're going to put our skewer sticks into, so it does have to be packed pretty tightly in there. The kale is going to just cover that so that it looks kind of like a nice bed where the strawberries and all the other fruit can kind of lay on. Now make sure you wash your kale really well. We've found bugs in there before. Oftentimes we've found larvae. Sometimes we've even found wasps. So make sure you wash it well, and that's why I've got all this water splashing everywhere. And now it's time to build. So these are the things we'll be putting into this arrangement. Make sure you've got that bowl that I just showed you. That's where you'll be cutting your skewer sticks into, especially if your skewer sticks are too long for where you're going to be putting your fruit into. Now the way I put the fruit into the arrangement, I start off with honeydew because they're the bigger melon. I usually do about 4 or 5 depending on if it's a larger arrangement that I'm doing. Just because these are really big wedges, I am only putting 4, although this is a large arrangement. And I'm staggering it as I go up. Basically that way it's going to kind of just look a little bit spread out, kind of balanced, and just, not clumps of everything together. That is an arrangement style in itself, but for this particular one that our customer ordered, it is one that the fruit is all spread out through this arrangement. Once I've put all the melon, I'm going to put in the dipped fruit. You do have to put the larger fruit in first, like the melon, because it's really hard to stick those in once you've got it filled with other fruit. You do want to put the more fragile fruit pieces in at the end. It just safer for the fruit, and especially with sprinkles, if every time you hit them they kind of just sprinkle off, and you don't exactly want that. It kind of ruins the look. It doesn't make it look as clean, so you want to put the more fragile fruit towards the end. In this case, I did put the sprinkles just because I'm used to it, but you should probably do the swirl first. It's not as fragile as the sprinkled fruit. As you can see, I've already got some sprinkles falling off as I hit everything as I place all the other fruit in. Now just keep filling your arrangement with all the different fruit that you have prepared, and try to fill in the spaces where you still see a lot of kale. Now I'm going to fill it in with the fruit that's not been dipped. This is a lot easier to leave at the end simply because it's the fruit that is a lot smaller. I usually pick strawberries that are smaller for filling in, especially when they're just, you're keeping them plain. It's just much easier to sneak them into the spaces where, it's smaller spaces where you're trying to fill in where you didn't get to put any dipped fruit in. And it's just much easier to stick those into the smaller, tighter spaces. I'm going to be putting in the grapes at this time as well. They're pretty skinny and can fit into any spaces. So usually grapes are often at the very end. Again, it's just a nice one to put into places where you need to fill it and it's just a small space. As you can see, I'm turning this arrangement just to find out where I can put my finishing strawberries into, again, to fill those spaces that might look empty where there's a lot of kale and not a lot of fruit. All right, these are just my last bits of fruit to put in. All right, I'm almost done. I'm actually going to take now bits of kale that I'm going to stick into places where you can see the skewer sticks a lot. Sometimes I miss spaces or spots that you can kind of see a lot of the skewer sticks, but sometimes it's hard to see when you're a lot higher than the arrangement. So sometimes you should kind of get down to it just to see at eye level if you have any skewer sticks showing. Twirl it around one more time so you can see, and it looks just about finished. All right, I've packed my edible fruit bouquet, and as you can see, it was all done and ready to go for delivery. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.